Number 5. The Kali Meteor. Thousands of years ago, a meteor hit Estonia with the force of a Hiroshima bomb. The meteor fragmented, creating 9 craters, which are now called the Kali crater field. One of these craters was over 100 meters and became a site of holy worship for some of the locals. Surrounding the water-filled crater is a large stone wall from the late Bronze Age, and the wall is stronger than any of the other similar structures in the surrounding area that were made at the time, hinting to scientists and historians the importance of the building. A large, concentrated amount of animal remains were found at the Kali crater and led anthropologists to believe that they were used as ritualistic sacrifices. The thing is, the bones were found thousands of years after the wall was built, meaning the crater was a consistent site of worship for thousands of years. There are several legends surrounding the lake, especially in Finnish mythology. Here's a quick synopsis. Quote, Louis, the evil wizard, steals the sun and fire from people, causing total darkness. Ukko, the god of the sky, orders a new sun to be made from a spark. The Virgin of the air starts to make a new sun, but the spark drops from the sky and hits the ground. The spark goes to an Aluan, or Kaleven lake, and causes its water to rise. Finnish heroes see the ball of fire falling somewhere behind the Neva River. The heroes head in that direction to seek fire, and they finally gather flames from a forest fire. End quote. The legend mentions a spark of sun, referring to the meteor, which when landed caused a huge impact and a forest fire. I mean, it's like dropping an actual bomb. The impact was insane. The crater has no noted reports of being an active worship site as of today, but such a widespread belief must have been passed down. I highly doubt the beliefs would have just ended there. Number 4. The Pythagoreans. Pythagoreanism originated in 600 BC, based on the beliefs and teachings that Pythagoras and his followers held. Pythagoras established the first Pythagorean community in the ancient Greek colony of Croton. The beliefs spread quickly throughout the land, and the death of Pythagoras created even more popularity as people created their own traditions within the belief system. The beliefs influenced Plato, and through him, they influenced Western philosophy. Most of the surviving information on Pythagoras came from Aristotle and the philosophers of the Patriotic school. The beliefs spread widely, and some say that they have survived as part of the Bacchic cult and Orphism. The beliefs included science and religion. Pythagoras was very well known in ancient times for his mathematical achievement, the Pythagorean theorem. I wish he wasn't as well known because I hated that class. He was also noted for his discovery that music had mathematic foundations. He's been credited as the philosopher who first discovered music intervals and is said to have invented the monochord. As I said, a lot of the information we now have on Pythagoras came from Aristotle and the Peripatetic school. The 5th century BCE information do not have any elements of supernatural entities, but by 4th century BCE, legends and fables were introduced into the belief system. Pythagoras founded the first community in Croton during 5th century BCE. He described it as a secret society, and he also gained political influence. The military and economy in Croton soon became very strong. In the early years, the Pythagorean sects were closed societies, where new members were chosen by existing ones, based on intelligence and discipline. Then they went under a 5-year initiation period where they would listen to teachings in complete silence. Then they would complete a test, and if they passed, they would be welcomed to the inner circle. But they were able to leave whenever they wanted. Soon, it became customary for family members to become Pythagoreans, as it developed into a philosophical tradition that influenced everyday life and swore members to secrecy. Within his teachings, Pythagoras emphasized moderation, vegetarianism, respect for elders and the state, and believed in a monogamous family structure. Boring! They believed the soul of humans was buried in the body, and the highest reward a human could attain was the soul joining the gods, meaning that they escaped reincarnation. They believed the soul was buried in the body as punishment, but that the soul could be purified, so they did a lot of soul cleansing rituals. The list of beliefs honestly go on and on. They include things like harmony, music, geometry, arithmetic, numbers, and cosmology. The disputes regarding Pythagoras' teachings began shortly after his death, which was caused by an arson attack. The disagreements led to 2 separate Pythagorean traditions, acousmatikoi and mathematikoi. The mathematikoi recognized the religious undertones of Pythagoreanism and studied it as part of their practice, but they focused more on the science and research part of Pythagoreanism. Their scientific pursuits were largely mathematical, but they did also conduct research in fields that Pythagoras had in his lifetime. The acousmatikoi believed humans had to act in inappropriate ways. They refused to recognize the advancements that the mathematikoi were making in mathematical and scientific research, which were, as I said, in line with Pythagoras' beliefs. They also challenged his original teachings, including promoting harmony, justice, ritual purity, and morals. The tension between the two groups only grew as their individual beliefs grew further and further apart over the years.
In third place, we have the People's Temple. In the 1950s, Indiana resident Jim Jones founded a church that he claimed promoted socialism and equality with the religious elements of Christianity. So initially, he was a little more than, just like a charismatic hustler who faked faith healings by having audience plants pull chicken livers out of congregants' mouths. But as the years progressed, he demanded more and more of his followers. In the early 1970s, Jones moved his group to California and set them up in a commune-like settlement in the Redwood Valley. After he established several locations throughout the state, including its headquarters in San Francisco, the temple forged ties with many left-wing political figures and claimed to have 20,000 members, even though apparently 3,000 to 5,000 is a little more likely. Jones eventually came to believe that the nuclear war was imminent and moved his followers again to the South American country of Guyana, which he thought would be, outside the potential danger zone. The group lived there for several years as the People's Temple Agricultural Project, but after former members started speaking out against the church, San Francisco Congressman Leo Ryan decided to travel to Jonestown to investigate claims of, not so good things. During his visit, a number of temple members expressed a desire to leave with him and accompanied Leo to the local airstrip at Port Kitsuma. There they were intercepted by self-styled temple security guards who opened fire on the group, killing the congressman, 3 journalists, one of the defectors, as well as injuring 9 others, including Ryan's aide, Jackie Spear. A few seconds of the incident were captured on video by NBC cameraman Bob Brown, one of the journalists who had their lives ended in the attack. That evening in Jonestown, Jones ordered his congregation to drink a concoction of cyanide-laced, grape-flavored Flavor-Aid. Right. This is where the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid originates. All in all, 918 people died. This includes 4 that died at the temple headquarters that night in the Guyanese capital of Georgetown. Some members resisted ending their lives and were injected with fatal doses of cyanide, as were those too young to drink the drink, and some others survived by fleeing through the jungle. Until 9/11, it was the largest loss of American civilian life in history, which sends a chill down my spine to just think about. Just a teensy little side note, by the way. Surviving temple members of the mass death in the US announced their fears of being targeted by a hit squad composed of Jonestown survivors. Similarly, in 1979, the Associated Press reported a US congressional aide's claim that there were 120 white, brainwashed assassins out from Jonestown awaiting the trigger word to pick up their hit. Temple insider Michael Prokes, who had been ordered to deliver a suitcase which contained temple funds, which were supposed to be transferred to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, killed himself in March of 1979, 4 months after the Jonestown incident. In the days leading up to his death, Michael sent notes to several people, together with a 30-page statement he had written about the temple. He had arranged for a press conference in a Modesto, California motel room, during which he read a statement to the 8 reporters who attended, before, excusing himself, entering a restroom, and ending his life. The levels of brainwashing displayed here are just too deep to unpack. In second place, we have the family. Oh sure, because that totally sounds wholesome. Known as one of Australia's most notorious cults, yep, not an American one for once, the family began with Anne Hamilton Byrne, who was a yoga teacher who believed herself to be a reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Oh, right, and unlike all the other listings today, this one was founded, by a woman. She teamed up with parapsychologist Raynor Johnson in the mid-1960s to form what was initially known as the Great White Brotherhood. Cripes, I swear I'm not talking about the Triple K group or the Yahtzees, I promise. Over the course of several years, Anne adopted 28 offspring by receiving the young as gifts from members, as well as by falsifying papers to convince others to give their spawn up for adoption, all in the hope of creating a master race that would survive the apocalypse she believed to be imminent. While other adults in the group were known as either aunties or uncles, Anne claimed to be the biological mother of all 28 adoptees. She also told the offspring she was, Jesus Christ, and when they didn't live up to her exact standards, they were punished forcibly, starved, or, dosed with LSD, because, a crazy brain trip is exactly how to make little ones behave. The cult went undetected for years because the adoptees were forced to hide whenever visitors arrived. But in 1987, the group's headquarters was finally raided and all the younglings were removed from the premises. Anne was only ever charged with falsifying birth certificates, and in 2019 she died from dementia at about 98 years old, having never faced consequences for her actions. Pardon me, my brain feels like it's about to explode. They had 32 years to nail her, and all she got was falsifying birth certificates? I feel like giving underage folks LSD should have been, the priority of offense charging. In first place, we have Shinrio. Founded by Shoko Asahara in 1984, Shinrio is a Japanese new religious movement and doomsday cult who first made headlines in the late 80s amid accusations that Asahara was forcing members to donate money to the group and holding them against their will. Oh, pardon me, I'll backtrack for a moment. Although was, from the beginning considered controversial in Japan, it was not initially associated with serious crimes. Public relations activities included publishing comics and animated cartoons that attempted attempted to tie its religious ideas to popular anime and manga themes, including space missions, powerful weapons, world conspiracies, and the quest for ultimate truth. Like many cult leaders, Asahara believed in an imminent doomsday, this time caused by a world war started by the United States. And of course, according to him, only his followers would survive. I feel like a broken record, but don't worry. This wouldn't be in first place if it wasn't worse than, drinking the Kool-Aid, giving underagers LSD, and branding. Okay, well, worse in my opinion. I'll admit, my brain's a little warped these days for a morality scale. In 1991, began using wiretapping to get NTT uniforms and equipment and created a manual for wiretapping. In July of 1993, cult members sprayed large amounts of liquid containing Bacillus anthracis spores from a cooling tower on the roof of Shinrio's Tokyo headquarters. However, their plan to cause an anthrax epidemic failed. The attack resulted in a large number of complaints about, bad odors, but no infections. At the end of 1993, the cult started secretly manufacturing the nerve agent sarin, and later VX. So tested its sarin on sheep at Banjawarn Station, a remote pastoral property in Western Australia, killing 29 sheep. Both sarin and VX were then used in several assassinations and attempts over 1994 to 1995. In 1995, the group executed a sarin gas attack in the Tokyo subway, which caused the deaths of 12 people and injured 50 more. The group says that those who carried out the attacks did so secretly, without being known to other executives and ordinary believers. After that attack, Japanese authorities learned that the group had also been responsible for the death of lawyer Tsutsumi Sakamoto, who was working on a class action lawsuit against Shinrio at the time of his death. Almost forgot. The group also killed his wife and descendant. On the 6th of July 2018, after exhausting all appeals, Asahara and 6 followers on death row were executed as punishment for the 1995 attacks and other crimes. So I'm glad that, unlike the last leader I discussed, some justice was actually served in this situation. 6 additional followers were executed on the 26th of the same month. At 12:10 a.m. on New Year's Day of 2019, at least 9 people were injured when a car was deliberately driven into crowds celebrating the New Year on Takashita Street in Tokyo. Local police reported the arrest of Kazuhiro Kusakabe, the suspected driver, who allegedly admitted to intentionally ramming his vehicle into crowds to protest his opposition to the death penalty, specifically in retaliation for, the execution of the aforementioned cult members.
Number 5. The Bilderberg Meeting. Starting us off today, we are going to be talking about the uber secretive Bilderberg Meeting. Now this one is a little bit of a cheat because technically it's not really a society, but it refers to an annual gathering that definitely happens without any of us knowing, in secrecy, and involves a lot of key profile VIPs, so I'd say it qualifies. The first Bilderberg meeting dates all the way back to 1954 and was held at the Hotel de Bilderberg in the Netherlands, which is where the group has taken its name since. Convened by Prince Bernhard, the gathering was a collection of powerful politicians from North America and Europe, designed to foster warmer relations between the two continents among fear of growing anti-American sentiment in Europe. In layman's terms, the Bilderberg meeting is an annual meeting where high-ranking politicians agree to not start World War III just yet. Just not just yet. They'll do it eventually, but keep things cool for now. Now, because of this, the Bilderberg meeting has quite the guest list. It's a veritable who's who. Bill Clinton, Margaret Thatcher, Angela Merkel, Tony Blair, Henry Kissinger, Pete Davidson, to name a few. Now, what happens in these meetings is anyone's guess, as they're wrapped in complete and utter secrecy. The minutes are never released, and journalists are barred from reporting on it at all. In fact, I would not be surprised if this video was the first time you've ever even heard of this. The secrecy definitely paves the way for rumors, with the belief that the Bilderberg meeting is an extension of the Illuminati, with the members being part of the New World Order, conspiring to control the world behind the scenes. Now, the official website for the Bilderberg meeting maintains, thanks to the private nature of the meeting, the participants take part as individuals rather than in any official capacity, and hence are not bound by the conventions of their office or by positions, which definitely makes things more suspicious. We'll get to the bottom of this, I'm sure. But if you're looking for more conspiracies, well, Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some. We've got loads of things on secret societies, ghosts, ghouls, goblins, aliens, UFOs. If it's freaking you out, we've got a video or 2 on it, I promise you that. So hit subscribe, please do me a little favor and ring that little bell as well so you don't miss a single one of our videos. But do that at the end of this one, because I got 4 more secret societies that I'd love to tell you all about. Number 4, the Knights of Pythias. Coming up next is going going to be the very mythical sounding Knights of Pythias. Oh, we love when a secret society is an order of knights. I love when something sounds like that. You know, they sound like I gotta go bring them an ancient crystal. The Knights of Pythias was founded by Justus H. Rathbone, a government employee in Washington, D.C. in 1864 who historically has one of the coolest names I've ever heard. Justus H. Rathbone. My god, that just rolls off the tongue. He felt there was an absolute moral need for an organization that practiced brotherly love. He loved Philadelphia. City of brotherly love, he was all about that. Around the same time, the country was involved in a bit of a punch-up, bit of a brother against brother, a bit of a civil war, you might call it. So brotherly love was needed. President Lincoln, upon learning of this group, expressed his approval of its mission and values, and the Knights became the first fraternal organization in the states to be chartered through an act of Congress. Now, the name is a reference to the Greek legend of Damon and Pythias, the Pythagorean ideal of friendship, which I guess means that this secret society in Washington, D.C. is the Knights of Friendship. That's adorable. All of its founding members worked for the government, and the Knights' colors are blue, yellow, and red. Blue signifying friendship, yellow charity, and red benevolence. The Knights of Pythias are still operating to this day, and are a partner of the Boy Scouts of America. That's hilarious. The second organization to receive its charter from the US Congress. That's the official hierarchy in America. It's Knights and then Boy Scouts. Those. Now, interestingly, the Knights of Pythias, despite their very, very cool name, may very well be one of the only secret societies no one is writing any conspiracy theories about. And I was looking, I really was, but the people in the tinfoil hats are not interested in the Knights of Pythias. Maybe it's because, unlike most other secret groups, the Knights really boldly announce that they're just all about friendship, and maybe people suspect they're not hiding anything, and maybe they're just totally genuine and all about friendship. That won't do for me. I think the whole friendship thing is a complete angle. I think the Knights of Pythias are doing something subliminal, something. They're hacking the airwaves somehow. We'll look into that. We're gonna get back to this.
Number 3. The snake cult of Glycon. Glycon was an ancient snake god who had a large and influential cult in the Roman Empire during the 2nd century. The cult is thought to have originated in Macedonia, where other snake cults, much like Glycon, had existed for centuries. Macedonians believed snakes had magical powers and fertility. Initially, the cult did not worship the spirit of the snake or an abstract idea of a godly snake. Instead, they worshipped an actual, physically tangible snake that resembled the god. The creator of this cult, Alexander, foretold that there would be a reincarnation of Asclepius. It's said that Alexander procured an egg, and when the people gathered to see it hatch, Alexander cut the goose egg open and revealed the prophetic snake god inside. The small snake grew to the size of a man, with the features of a human on its face, including long blonde hair. Some say that the figure depicted at this stage was actually just a puppet, or a trained snake with a puppet head. Creepy. The focus of worship in the cult was fertility. Barren women would bring offerings to Glycon in the hopes of becoming pregnant. By 160 AD, the cult's teachings and methods began to spread. An inscription from that era reads, "Glycon, protect us from the plague cold." The same year, the government of Asia declared that he was the protector of Glycon's oracle. The governor also married Alexander's daughter. Many sought prophecies from Alexander, yearning to learn of what their future holds and even how they might perish. The cult's beliefs were spread through lower social classes, and over time, even high-class citizens and officials were die-hard believers of Glycon's healing, and of the prophecies Alexander told. The support and belief of the emperors, paired with the healing powers of serpents throughout history, lured many people into the cult. There was no shortage of converts and believers. Roman coins were even made in honor of Glycon, which likely happened way after Alexander's lifetime. For at least 100 years after Alexander's passing, a new Glycon cult formed and began to spread their influence. Statues and other archaeological finds have been located in Tomi, now known as Constata, displaying just how present the cult was throughout history in the large city. The Glycon cult is still referred to this day. The statue that was found in Constata, Romania is on display at the Constata History and Archaeology Museum. The statue is even commemorated on a postage stamp from 1974 and on a 10,000 lei banknote from 1994. And to this day, people declare themselves as devotees of Glycon. Talk about a long-lasting influence. Number 2, the Elysian Mysteries. The Elysian Mysteries were initiations that were held every year for the cult of Demeter and Persephone. They took place at the Panhellenic sanctuary of Ulysses in ancient Greece. They're considered the most famous of the secret ancient Greek religious sites. Their basis was an old agrarian cult, and there's evidence that they were derived from the religious practices of the Mycenaean period. The Mysteries referred to Hades' abduction of Demeter's daughter, Persephone, and was told in 3 phases: descent, search, and ascent. Originally, the cult of Demeter was private, hidden under the telesterion. Some of the practices are seemingly influenced by other religious practices, specifically those from the Mycenaean period. The group would hold a feast. At the beginning, priests would fill 2 special vessels and then pour them out, one to the east and one to the west. Then, the people would look upwards and downwards while chanting, "Reign and conceive." Then, a child was initiated into the group from the divine fire. Honestly, I tried to decode this part for a while, but I had very little success, I'm sorry. The climax of the celebration represented the force of the new life. When the Mysteries started, immortality was not a part of the beliefs, but as time went on, they believed that it would grant them a better fate in the underworld. Eventually, the Mysteries were spread wide, and people from all over flocked to participate. Eventually, the Mysteries were controlled by 2 families, which led to a huge number of initiates. The only requirements were that you had never directly caused someone's death and that you were able to speak Greek. Men, women, and slaves were all welcome. The Mysteries came to an end around 170 AD, after it was ransacked by the Samaritans. Eventually, the building decayed and the religion died down, but it is still referred to often in art and literature, and many interesting theories regarding present-day mysteries have been mentioned. Number 1. The Cult of Sacrifice. The Cult of Sacrifice is a pretty interesting one, and it actually differs a lot from the others because the cult did not worship any specific entity or object of power. The Cult of Sacrifice originated thousands of years ago, but its presence was not constant. It mainly occurred during great times of stress, when its beliefs and practices would be most useful. Records of the cult are poorly recalled and only exist in written form, so the origin's location is unknown, but it is speculated that it began in the eastern hemisphere of Rathnir because most written evidence was found there. As I mentioned earlier, the cult did not have an object or entity that they worshipped. Instead, they believed in sacrificing elements of their own life for the good of others. The cult was based on the idea of charity and self-sacrifice for the benefit of others, in particular, those who need it most. The cult took these ideals to an absolute extreme though. They would starve and fast, not because it was a religious practice, but because they'd given all of their food to others who were perceived as having less. They were minimalists, not because they wanted to be, but because they would give all of their money and material possessions away to those who were perceived as having less. Essentially, they would damage themselves to the point of illness and death just in the name of sacrifice and in the hope of helping. This was most likely the reason that the cult had such sporadic activity throughout centuries, because they were pretty extreme and a lot of people didn't survive. To join the cult, the only thing necessary was the blessing of an existing cult member, like any cult member. So yeah, it was able to spread through small communities pretty quickly. I'm kind of stuck on how strange the towns that this cult was prominent in probably looked. Like, I'm imagining people sleeping on the streets, freezing, overheating, and starving, while there's just like a massive hoard of food that they've placed in the town center for the less fortunate. But no one will touch the food, and all of their houses are empty because they're the only ones living there. Crazy. The cult is essentially extinct because, mostly everyone who is a member ended up dying from their loyal devotion. However, the cult came to its official end on August 8th, 2021, when the last member died. The cult officially died because, if you remember, the only way to join the cult is to be blessed by an existing member. So, the faith is officially extinguished. I mean, their ideology is good, but extremism is never good. Middle ground, that's the sweet spot.
Number 5, the Manson Family. Starting out with the most famous of the cults on this list, we have the group of young people who fell under the spell of Charles Manson in the late 1960s in California, USA. Charles Manson was in and out of prison for most of his life before settling in San Francisco and beginning to establish himself as a guru during the height of the Summer of Love hippie culture. Using some elements from the philosophy of the Process Church of Final Judgment, who believed that at the end of the world, Jesus and Satan would join forces to judge humanity, Manson formed a group of mostly young women, teaching them that they were reincarnations of the original Christians, and that he was Jesus Christ. In a converted school bus, the group made their way to Los Angeles, where Manson preached and continued to grow his group of followers. They stayed in the home of Dennis Wilson, of the Beach Boys, for a time, before eventually moving them to an old disused Western movie set, Spawn Ranch. In exchange for the company of the many female followers, the owner of the ranch, George Spawn, allowed Manson and his growing family to stay at the ranch free of charge. Manson began using his followers for extortion, taking a music teacher who they believed had inherited a large fortune hostage in his home and demanding that he join the cult and turn over the money. The man maintained that they were mistaken, and Manson attacked him with a sword before having one of his followers finish the job. In the cult's most famous incident, Manson sent 4 family members to the home of Hollywood actress Sharon Tate with instructions for them to end the lives of Tate and her 4 guests who were staying with her. The next night, these family members were joined by 3 others and brought by Manson to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, where they broke in and tied up the 2 residents at Manson's instructions. He then ordered them to dispatch the victims and left. Although it hasn't been conclusively proven, the Manson family are believed to be responsible for at least 15 other people, with Manson himself claiming at one point that he was responsible for 35 total deaths. Manson was apprehended and put on trial along with the family members who had carried out his orders, but the trial showed just what a hold Manson still had over his family. Family members showed up outside the courthouse where they held a vigil while armed with hunting knives. They threatened witnesses, setting fire to one man's van while he was still inside it. The trial itself was also a wild time, with one of the defense attorneys who Manson disagreed with going missing and being discovered murdered, and Manson at one point leaping over a table to try and attack the judge while the other defendants began chanting in Latin. Manson and the murderous family members were sent to prison in 1971. Manson remained in prison until his death in 2017. Number 4. Omin Rio. This Japanese doomsday cult started out as a simple yoga and meditation class, which was founded by Shoko Asahara, using his bizarre interpretations of various forms of Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, yoga, and the works of Nostradamus. In 1992, Shoko published a book that claimed that he was not only Christ, but Japan's only enlightened master. He claimed that he had the ability to take away the sins and bad deeds of his followers and transfer spiritual power to them. As is the case in a lot of cults, he claimed that doomsday was fast approaching and that everyone except his followers would be killed. The movement grew, eventually getting enough members to be considered an official religion. Membership continued to grow, but rumblings began emerging that some members were being tricked into joining, were being forced to donate large sums of money, being held against their will, and in one case even murdered when they tried to leave. An anti-cult lawyer tried to sue the group and soon went missing with his wife and child. Things escalated even further in 1993 when the group tried to use a machine to pump anthrax onto a neighborhood in Tokyo. Although thankfully, the group had stolen the wrong type of anthrax and no one was hurt. Due to the failure of the anthrax, the group began manufacturing sarin and VX nerve gas, which they used in their subsequent attacks. In 1994, the group used a converted refrigerator truck to release the gas on a neighborhood where judges, who were presiding over a lawsuit against the group, lived. 500 people were injured and 8 died, but the attack was not linked to the cult at the time. A few months later, the brother of a member who had escaped was kidnapped, dispatched by the group, and disposed of with a microwave-powered incinerator. He had left a note saying that should he go missing, the group was responsible. Asahara was trying to manufacture weapons, and in order to distract the police, had some of his followers carry out a devastating attack. On March 20th, 1995, Ohm members boarded 5 separate trains in Tokyo's subway system and released sarin gas, resulting in 13 people dying, 54 being seriously injured, and between 980 and 6,000 people being hurt. This distraction backfired, and the police raided the group's base at the foot of Mount Fuji and discovered explosives, weapons, biological warfare agents, and even a Russian military helicopter. Over 150 cult members were arrested. The next month, a burning paper bag containing a hydrogen cyanide device was found and defused. Had it not been found in time, over 10,000 people could have died. Several other similar devices were found in the days following, and more disasters were averted. Asahara was eventually arrested as his cult continued to attack people connected with the investigation, sending bombs in the mail to the governor, resulting in his secretary's fingers being blown off. In October of 1995, the group was stripped of its religious status and went bankrupt, but it managed to rebrand and still operates in a limited capacity to this day. Asahara and the 12 other cult members who had been found responsible for the attacks were arrested and held until their executions in 2018.
Number 3. The Independent Order of Odd Fellows. Oh, the Independent Order of Odd Fellows. Well, Finally, a secret society that's right for me. How do I gain entrance to this? Well, while I figure that out, I'll mull over the history with you. It's unknown when the Independent Order of Odd Fellows was founded for sure, but the first reference of it ever written comes in 1812 and references George IV. Before he was named Prince Regent of the United Kingdom, George IV had been a member of the Freemasons for a while. He wanted a member of his family to come join the Freemasons with him and was hoping that his royal connections and purse strings would be able to bypass the lengthy, complicated initiation process. Unfortunately, no one is given such freedoms to bypass Masonic initiation rites. Come on, you should have known that. So George, bittered by an order that wouldn't have him, splintered off to form a rival club, the Independent Order of Odd Fellows. Love the name. Although the website for the order claims that it was started all the way back in 1066, although there aren't as many sources to cite this. Much like the Knights, their guiding principles are the principles of friendship, love, and truth, and its members strive to live by these principles in their daily lives. The organization is non-political and non-sectarian, welcoming individuals from all walks of life and creeds. Are you also getting a bit disappointed that a lot of secret societies on this list have mainly said that they just do like charity work and like helping out around town and getting people the help they deserve? No, come on. Where's the secret soldiers? Where's the lizard people living under the White House? None of this is showing up yet. The Order of Odd Fellows places an emphasis on community service. Its members engage in various charitable activities. They provide relief to the needy. They assist the sick and disabled. They offer scholarships and educational opportunities. Do you guys not conceal any Martians or any UFOs or anything? You just go around giving homes to the elderly and orphans? Gosh, are there any secret societies that are trying to control the world still? Now, regardless of how the Order got its start, the Order is strong and still going today. The club has counted several British Prime Ministers among its rank, Winston Churchill and Stanley Baldwin, to name a few. Number 2. The Patriotic Order Sons of America. Imagine a time when patriotism was at its peak, and everyone wanted to celebrate their love for their country in a unique way. How fitting that I'm filming this on the 4th of July. Happy Joey Chestnut Day, Americans. Enter the Patriotic Order Sons of America, the POSA. This organization, founded in 1847, aimed to promote American values, apple pie, American history, and strengthen the bonds of brotherhood among its members. So it's kind of like the America fan club, you know? Americans love America, by and large, but these guys really loved America. Picnics, parades, all manner of social congregation, so long as that social congregation was about celebrating Uncle Sam's land of the free and home of the brave. Now, I am making it sound like it's a patriotic summer camp, and it kinda is, but it was also about education and the preservation of American culture. They upheld the importance of American history by building historical societies, museums, and libraries to collect and document artifacts and stories from the past, like a time machine to the days of old. Now, like any other secret society, obviously they have to have some rituals and ceremonies. As far as we know, nothing too outright sinister, mostly just initiation rites. If you ask the organization, they'll tell you they're one of the most progressive patriotic institutions in the United States. Now, how progressive they actually are, definitely up for a little bit of debate. In the 1890s, they were only open for white Americans. Today, the order opens its membership to all native-born or naturalized American male citizens who believe in their country, so it's not super progressive. But as far as secret societies go, it seems like they're pretty benevolent and do just want to celebrate the country and not rule it in secret. Or maybe they do, I don't know. And number 1, the Molly Maguires. In the 1870s, 24 foremen and supervisors in the coal mines of Pennsylvania were assassinated. Now, who was behind the plot? The leading suspect was the secret society, the Molly Maguires. Now that's a secret society name. The Molly Maguires were an organization of Irish militants, who it's thought got their names because they frequently used women's clothing as a disguise while carrying out acts. This sounds a lot more like it's just a gang than it does a secret society. I'm pretty sure these guys were the bad guys at Red Dead Redemption 2. Operating primarily in the mid-1860s to 1870s, the group was named after a legendary folktale of Molly Maguire, an Irish nun who was evicted from her home. As such, the Maguires acted as a sort of big brother for Irish immigrants in America, aiming to address harsh working conditions and mistreatment by whatever means necessary. Faced with low wages, long hours, and unsafe working conditions, the Maguires sought to protect the rights and interests of their family through resistance, sabotage, and violence. The organization operated covertly, with members swearing oaths of loyalty and secrecy. Their tactics included coercion, intimidation, and you better believe just a little bit of political assassination. They targeted mine operators, foremen, and individuals they perceived as oppressors within the mining industry. killings, murders, all of this stuff pretty commonplace. The rise of the Molly Maguires attracted attention from mining companies and the government. The notorious Pinkerton Detective Agency, the actual bad guys from Red Dead Redemption 2, was hired to infiltrate and gather evidence against the group. High-profile trials followed, resulting in the conviction and execution of several Molly Maguires. The trials were marked by controversy and allegations of false testimony, leading to debates about the fairness of the proceedings. But if you know anything about the Pinkertons, it's that they don't really play fair. Today, the Molly Maguires are still sort of a subject of historical interest, serving as a reminder of the complex dynamics between labor, management, and immigrant communities in the United States during the 19th century. I don't really have a joke to end that on. I didn't think that far ahead.
Number 5, Scientology. I figured it was the easiest to kick off today, with the most obvious cult, and personally for me, the scariest. Scientology is a set of beliefs and practices invented by the American author L. Ron Hubbard, who developed a series of ideas that he called Dianetics, which he represented as a form of therapy. Okay, yeah, that's great therapy. An organization that he established in 1950 to promote it went bankrupt, and he lost the rights to his book in 1952. He then recharacterized his ideas as a religion for tax purposes and renamed them Scientology. By 1954, he had regained the rights to Dianetics and founded the Church of Scientology, which remains the largest organization promoting Scientology today. There are practitioners independent of the church in what is called the Free Zone, and estimates put the number of Scientologists at just under 40,000 people worldwide. So, not a lot of people at all, just a small town. Scientology beliefs include reincarnation and that traumatic events cause problematic engrams in the mind. They claim that an activity called auditing can remove the bad engrams. A fee is charged, though, for each session of auditing. Once an auditor deems an individual free of engrams, typically after several years, they are given the status of clear. After being deemed clear, adherents can take part in further activities called operating thetan levels, which require further payments. The operating thetan texts are kept secret for most followers and are revealed only after adherents have typically given hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Scientology organization. If you don't have ridiculous amounts of money to burn, don't worry, they're freely available online on sites such as WikiLeaks. And if you don't want to waste your time, these texts say past lives took place in extraterrestrial cultures. Look, I don't agree with Scientology, but I do agree with aliens visiting Earth. But these involve an alien called Xenu, described as a planetary ruler that existed 70 million years ago, who brought billions of aliens to Earth and killed them with thermonuclear weapons. Yeah, I totally believe that. Despite being kept secret from most followers, this forms the essential mythological framework of Scientology's crazy logic? From soon after the formation, these groups have generated considerable opposition and controversy, in several instances because of their illegal activities. In 1967, Hubbard established a new elite group, the Sea Organization, or Sea Org, the membership of which was drawn from the most committed members of the church. By 1981, the 21-year-old David Miscavige, who had been one of his closest aides in the Sea Org, rose to prominence. Hubbard died at his ranch in Creston, California on January 24th of 1986, and Miscavige succeeded Hubbard as the head of the church, a position he holds till this day. If you really want a mystery to solve, try and find David's wife. In 2013, actress Leah Remini, a former Scientologist and vocal critic of the organization, filed a missing persons report with the Los Angeles Police Department concerned about her disappearance. The LAPD allegedly contacted Shelley and closed the case within hours. Despite assurances from Church of Scientology spokespeople that Shelley Miscavige is alive and well, many continue to express skepticism. In 2022, after hearing about an investigation into now retired LAPD Captain Corey Palka about alerting others of confidential police investigations, Remini revealed photographs of Palka accepting a $20,000 check from Scientology for LAPD charities and one of a Scientology information kiosk located in the LAPD Hollywood division. While speaking with Palka in his office, Remini noticed a letter of thanks to him from Scientology with an invitation to lunch at their celebrity center. So, bribery. As of 2023, Shelley Miscavige's whereabouts remain unknown, and who knows if we'll ever know. In the 1970s, Hubbard's followers engaged in a program of criminal infiltration of the US government, resulting in several executives of the organization being convicted and imprisoned for multiple offenses by a US federal court. Now, Hubbard himself was convicted in absentia of fraud by a French court in 1978 and sentenced to 4 years in prison. And in 1992, a court here in Canada convicted the Scientology organization in Toronto of spying on law enforcement and government agencies penalties, and criminal breach of trust, later upheld by the Ontario Court of Appeal. The Church of Scientology was convicted of fraud by a French court in 2009, a judgment upheld by the Supreme Court of Cassation in 2013. The Church of Scientology has been described by government inquiries, international parliamentary bodies, scholars, law lords, and numerous superior court judgments as both a dangerous cult and a manipulative, profit-making business. I could talk about them for hours and just how awful they are, so let me know in the comments if that's, something y'all would be interested in. Number 4, Family International. Initially called Teens for Christ, Children of God, or COG, it was founded in 1968 by rogue preacher David Berg in Huntington Beach, California. Attracting young runaways and hippies, David preached a kind of worship that combined the ways of Jesus Christ with the free love movement of the 1960s. Group living, zealous converting, and isolated communes were all pillars of this church. Members, who amounted to around 15,000 people across the world at its peak, didn't go to work or go to school. And they also didn't believe in the nuclear family, so younglings were grouped together and lived separately from their parents. In the late 1970s, COG became notorious for the sexual practices that one of the founders' own daughters later described as religious sexual coercion. David coined the term flirty fishing, which was a sexual practice in which women would allegedly have sex with men to bring them into the cult. And if that wasn't scummy enough, he also promoted and encouraged the sexualization of younglings within the COG community. As David manipulated the COG family with his sadistic practices, members started leaving the community, including the families of actors Joaquin Phoenix and Rose McGowan, who both grew up in the communes. Former COG members began coming forward in the early 1990s, describing an environment that permitted and encouraged the physical and sexual taking advantage of younglings. Ricky Dupuy appeared on a talk show in 1993 and revealed that he'd been ordered by the group to forcibly fornicate with someone barely in the double digits of age. Ricky later took his own life, sadly, like many other members of the group, including the founder's son, Ricky Rodriguez, who was sexually taken advantage of throughout his life by his father and the group. Although David died in 1994 while under FBI investigation, the cult continues to exist and now goes by the name Family International, although the group claims that the horrific practices are a thing of the past. Why do I not believe them?
Number 3. Heaven's Gate. Not to be confused with the 1980 Western that flopped so hard that the director-driven film era in Hollywood was brought to an end. Heaven's Gate was an American religious movement founded in 1974 by Bonnie Nettles in Marshall Applewhittem, otherwise known as T and Doe. T met Doe while working at a hospital in 1972 when Doe was visiting a sick friend. Doe was really into biblical prophecy and upon meeting the woman felt that she was so familiar that they must have met in a past life. On the other hand, she claimed that aliens had told her that they would one day meet and that they had a divine mission to accomplish. Just like the Blues Brothers. The two studied religious and science fiction texts together, eventually coming to the logical conclusion that Doe was a reincarnated Jesus and that they had been chosen to fulfill the prophecies of the Bible and that they had been given higher level minds than most folks and were the two witnesses described in the book of Revelations. They were pretty sure that they would die and be resurrected, at which point a UFO would show up and take them away. They had trouble getting followers until they began advertising meetings where they claimed that aliens wanted volunteers for an experiment, which would result in the subjects being brought to a higher evolutionary level. They recruited over 100 members who they traveled the country with before becoming reclusive. Bonnie Nettles, aka T, died of liver cancer in 1985, and Marshall Applewhite, aka Doe, became the sole leader of the group. In 1996, the group rented a home in Rancho Santa Fe in California, which they referred to as the Monastery. In 1997, Doe made a video message claiming that they had to evacuate Earth by taking their own lives as Heaven's Gate was closing, and by dying, they would be taken by a UFO to a higher level of existence. Doe and 38 other cult members then dressed in identical black shirts with armbands that read Heaven's Gate Away Team, as an extremely macabre Star Trek reference. All of them were also wearing Nike Decades, as the group apparently had adopted the company's slogan of Just Do It as a personal slogan. The group then covered their heads with plastic bags and asphyxiated. They did this in 3 tiers so that the remaining members could take off their bags and arrange their bodies with dignity. In an interesting bit of trivia, in the aftermath of this incident, the Nike Decades have become a highly sought after collector's item due to their involvement in the incident, because of course they are. Number 2. The People's Temple Agricultural Project. Founded by Jim Jones in Indiana in 1955, the People's Temple preached that those who remained drugged with the opiate of religion had to be brought to enlightenment with socialism. Of course, this wasn't the fun Bernie Sanders socialism where everyone gets to go to college. Jordan's main influences were people like Chairman Mao and Joseph Stalin. He was driven out of Indiana due to having integrationist beliefs and went to California, where he became involved in local politics, helping George Moscone become mayor of San Francisco in 1975. As a result, Jones was made the chairman of the city's Housing Authority Commission, which allowed him to rub elbows with the wealthy and powerful. After some backlash from local newspapers and fears of police crackdown, the group set up a commune in Guyana, which was a small and poor enough and independent enough country that Jones thought he would be able to easily get political influence and protection. With the approval of the local government, the group began building their commune, which they called Jonestown. He made a deal with the government that would allow hundreds of cult members to enter the country, but very difficult for them to leave. At its peak, Jonestown had about 900 people living in the small commune. Jones became more and more unhinged, controlling the media the group were allowed to consume, lest they be subjected to a movie that wasn't pro-Marxist. He made everyone in the commune work long shifts, 6 days a week. He continued to brainwash and manipulate his people, telling them that they would soon be under attack by the CIA and should prepare to eventually take their own lives as a form of revolutionary protest, and had them guard the entrances of Jonestown with machine guns and machetes. As concerns from family members in the States grew, investigations into Jonestown began. When a delegation of investigators, reporters, and concerned relatives went to visit the commune, they were able to convince a few members to defect. As they tried to return to the States on 2 planes, one of the defectors produced a handgun and began opening fire on the other passengers. At the same time, a tractor trailer stormed the airstrip, with the passengers of the trailer producing shotguns and firing at the planes, with none on board surviving. While this was happening, Jones had a cocktail of poisons mixed into a large tub of grape Flavor-Aid, and had the 909 residents drink it and take their own lives. Despite the fact that it was Flavor-Aid that was used by Jones, the incident was the source of the expression, "drink the Kool-Aid." Number 1. The Thuggy Cult. The Thuggy were a secret society operating in India in the mid-1800s who were known for attacking travelers and garroting them with a weapon called a rumal. Its members were trained from childhood in its use. They considered efficient and quiet acts of murder to be the greatest accomplishment possible. They would follow groups of travelers until they made camp, at which point they would attack. Word of the Thuggy began to grow as numerous bodies began to be discovered in wells around the countryside. However, the Thuggy were not attacking their victims simply to take their valuables. The number 1 rule of the cult was not to shed any of their victims' blood, as they were actually human sacrifices for their god, Kali. The Thuggy believed that constant indulgence in vices was the only way to become closer to and achieve union with their god. During the time that the cult was active, over 30,000 people were attacked by the Thuggy and sacrificed to Kali. British officers were tasked with eliminating the cult and began mapping out the cult's attacks in order to predict where the attacks would likely take place and set traps for the Thuggy while disguised as merchants and travelers. Between 1830 and 1841, at least 3,700 cult members were captured, effectively ending the group. Many were put in prison for the rest of their lives, with 500 of them being hanged. Without exception, all of them that went to the gallows showed no emotion or remorse, often requesting to put on their own nooses themselves. When asked if he was sorry, one member who claimed to have the Thuggy record for most victims at 931 responded that no one should ever feel bad for following their trade. The term thug is still used to this day to describe a brutal criminal, and the group is remembered for their various appearances as villains in films over the years, such as when they were depicted by Steven Spielberg in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Number 5. The Cult of Dionysus. The Cult of Dionysus has sparked dark speculations and controversies over many years. It's a highly secretive organization, and knowing what exactly occurs within the privacy of members is unknown. Just to list a few of the many theories, here are some of the dark speculations and controversies surrounding the Cult of Dionysus. Quote, excess and madness. The cult's celebration of intoxication and ecstasy led to accusations of excess and madness. Critics argued that the excessive consumption of wine and the frenzied behavior of cult participants could lead to a breakdown of societal order and morality, moral and social disruption. Many in the ancient world viewed the Bacchanalian and Dionysian festivals as a threat to established social norms. The rejection of traditional roles and the temporary suspension of societal rules during these festivals raised concerns about moral and social disruption. Bodily liberation. Some Dionysian rituals were associated with liberation and promiscuity. Some believed that these practices would lead to licentious behavior and the erosion of traditional family structures. Foreign influence. The cult of Dionysus was often associated with foreign influence and was viewed with suspicion by those who feared the introduction of foreign beliefs and practices into their culture. Accusations of political subversion. In some instances, the cult was seen as a potential threat to political stability. Rulers and authorities worried that the Dionysian festivals could be used as a cover for political subversion or rebellion. Mystery and secrecy. The secret and exclusive nature of some Dionysian rites gave rise to speculations and conspiracy theories. The mystery of religion aspect of the cult fueled rumors and concerns about what might be happening behind closed doors. cults. Tragedies and harm. The association of Dionysus with tragedy in Greek drama led to the belief that participation in Dionysian rituals could result in real-life tragedies and harm. End quote. Though the speculations likely do hold some truth, being able to definitively answer whether any or all of these theories are true is impossible. Records of the cult's activity were often exaggerated through misunderstandings or misinterpretations of the cult's practices. But it is thought that many of the rituals have been spotted throughout history, hinting that the cult may not be as inactive as many think. Number 4. The Blackburn Cult. May Otis Blackburn's cult, which is referred to with many names, including the Order of the Doves and, of course, the Blackburn Cult, was a controversial religious movement that emerged in Los Angeles, California. The cult's beliefs and practices were described as a combination of mysticism, apocalyptic prophecies, and unorthodox spiritual teachings. The cult was unofficially founded in the early 1920s, centering its teachings on the notion that May Otis Blackburn, their leader and founder, was a chosen prophet, selected by divine forces to guide followers through the impending end of the world. May claimed to receive direct revelations and instructions from angels and other spiritual entities. She warned her followers to prepare for the looming apocalypse, leading them into believing that only they would be saved from the cataclysmic events she spoke of. The beliefs also included select sections of witchcraft and mysticism, which actually led to legal troubles for May Otis Blackburn and her followers. In 1929, she, along with her son Raymond, faced a high-profile trial in which they were accused of practicing witchcraft and defrauding their followers. The trial received significant media attention and portrayed the cult as a group of radicals who manipulated their members for personal gain. May Otis Blackburn was a writer also. She produced numerous books and pamphlets to spread her religious doctrines and apocalyptic visions. These writings played a crucial role in spreading her teachings and attracting new converts to the Order of the Doves. Despite the cult's strange practices and legal challenges, it managed to gather a following during its existence. However, the relentless scrutiny from the law surrounding a certain body found under a house frequented by the cult and disturbed opinions from the public ultimately led to its disbandment. May Otis Blackburn's life took a quieter turn after the cult's dissolution, and she passed away in 1951. But to this day, it's not known certainly whether there are still practicing members, whether it be people who grew up in the cult or those whose parents raised them under the set of beliefs.
Number 3, the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known as FLDS for short. Time to focus on the fundamentalist sects that split off when the core religion opted to renounce the practice of polygamy. Technically speaking, polygamy is the practice or custom of having more than one wife or husband at the same time. And while I'm not judging multiple partners or open relationships when they're consensual or of age, there's a lot of ick to unpack here. It is estimated that 6,000 to 10,000 members reside within the congregate sister sites of Hilldale, Utah, Colorado City, Arizona, El Dorado, Texas, West Cliff, Colorado, Mancos, Colorado, Creston and Bountiful, British Columbia, and Pringle, South Dakota. Those who wish to continue the practice remained Mormon, but on their own terms. Polygamy remains, illegal, and in 1953, an entire FLDS community was arrested in Short Creek, Arizona, otherwise known as modern-day Colorado City, and most had their little ones taken from them for safety. A compound in Texas was raided in 2008 after Child Protective Services was made aware of allegations of poor living situations. Over 400 younglings were taken from the compound and placed in CPS custody. So I remember hearing about the raid while watching the Oprah Winfrey Show with my mom of all things. If my brain serves me right, it was about 10 months after the raid when all of the younglings were returned to the Yearning for Zion ranch, and it was such huge news that she was being granted access to this top secret compound. Leader of the FLDS, Warren Jeffs, remains in his position, despite being in prison for life after acts against minors. Number 2, Shinrio. Founded by Shoko Asahara in 1984, Shinrio is a Japanese new religious movement and doomsday cult who first made headlines in the late 80s amid accusations that Asahara was forcing members to donate money to the group and holding them against their will. Pardon me, I'll backtrack for a moment. Although was, from the beginning considered controversial in Japan, it was not initially associated with serious crimes. Public relations activities included publishing comics and animated cartoons that attempted to tie its religious ideas to popular anime and manga themes, including space missions, powerful weapons, world conspiracies, and the quest for ultimate truth. Like many cult leaders, Asahara believed in an imminent doomsday. This time it was caused by a world war started by the United States. And of course, according to him, only his followers would survive 1995. In 1991, began using wiretapping to get NTT uniforms and equipment and created a manual for wiretapping. In July of 1993, cult members sprayed large amounts of liquid containing Bacillus anthracis spores from a cooling tower on the roof of Shinrikyo's Tokyo headquarters. However, their plan to cause an anthrax epidemic failed. The attack resulted in a large number of complaints about bad odors, but no infections. Thank goodness. But by the end of 1993, the cult started secretly manufacturing the nerve agent sarin and later VX. Tested its sarin on sheep at Banjarwarn Station, a remote pastoral property in Western Australia, killing 29 sheep. So both sarin and VX were then used in several assassinations and attempts between 1994 to 95. In 1995, the group executed a sarin gas attack in the Tokyo subway, which caused the deaths of 12 people and injured 50 more. The group says that those who carried out attacks did so secretly, without being known to other executives and ordinary believers. After that attack, Japanese authorities learned that the group had also been responsible for the death of lawyer Tsutsumi Sakamoto, who was working on a class action lawsuit against Shinrikyo at the time of his death. Almost forgot, the group also killed his wife and descendant. Yes, independent people. On July 6 of 2018, after exhausting all appeals, Asahara and 6 followers on death row were executed as punishment for the 1995 attacks and other crimes. So I'm glad that unlike, some of the other folks I've discussed today, some justice was actually served in this situation. 6 additional followers were executed on the 26th of the same month, and at 12:10 a.m. on New Year's Day of 2019, at least 9 people were injured when a car was deliberately driven into crowds celebrating the New Year on Takashita Street in Tokyo. Local police reported the arrest of Kazuhiro Kusakabe, the suspected driver, who allegedly admitted to intentionally ramming his vehicle into crowds to protest his opposition to the death penalty, specifically in retaliation for the execution of the before-mentioned cult members. Number 1. Good News International Church. The Good News International Ministries, GNIM for short, or Good News International Church, was founded by Paul Mackenzie and his first wife in 2003. So this group attracted international attention in April of this year when it was revealed that Mackenzie had allegedly instructed members to starve themselves to meet Jesus before the end of the world, which has resulted in the deaths of over 400 people. And when you consider more than 600 people have been reported missing, it's just a yikes situation. About 65 rescued followers were charged with attempted self-ending of life after they refused to eat during their stay at a rescue center. The Doomsday Cult is adamantly anti-Western, and with amenities such as healthcare, education, and sports being dismissed as evils of Western life, and with Mackenzie condemning the United States, the United Nations, and the Catholic Church as tools of Satan. Look, I'm all for condemning the Catholic Church, but calling it a tool of Satan feels like an oxymoron. The group devotes much of its teachings to the end times, ergo they've been dubbed a doomsday cult, the definition of which is a cult that believes in apocalypticism and millenniarism, including both these, that predict disasters and those that attempt to destroy the entire universe. Mackenzie founded the GNIM in 2003 and accumulated a sizable following, largely due to convincing his followers that he could speak directly with God. Beginning in the late 2010s, Mackenzie's church began to receive a renewed wave of scrutiny regarding the internal practices of the organization, particularly in 2017, when Mackenzie and his wife faced several charges relating to the church. He was chastised for inciting students to abandon their education after denouncing it as ungodly, as well as radicalizing and denying medical care to them afterwards. Several students died as a result, and in 2017, 93 students were rescued by government authorities from the group. After another arrest in 2019, he departed Malindi and headed to the Shakahola forest, where the mass starvation occurred earlier this year. Now, Mackenzie did not join his followers in the mass starvation. In fact, a dietary menu was found on the wall in one of the special houses in the forest, believed to be his resting room. He's currently under police custody as the process of exhuming the bodies continues. Police authorities claim that some bodies were missing organs and believed they were being harvested and sold.
Number 5. The Skull and Bone Society. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this video might be the one to get the channel taken down. I've made a lot of bold videos. I've made some very, very heretical claims against the Catholic Church, and I've said some wild things and claimed them as facts regarding the Megalodon, but this might be the video to get the channel blacklisted as we start diving into and talking about some of the most secretive societies out there. The Skull and Bone Society is one of the more well-known secret societies, and yeah, I guess that's kind of an oxymoron. It's an undergraduate society at Yale University. Founded in 1832, it's renowned the world over for just how darn secretive it is, and its practice of strange rituals and its secret membership. Partly why it's so captivating to conspiracy theorists is its alumni are something to boast about. Many presidents have been members of the Skull and Bone Society, both Bush Sr. and Jr. Speculation runs rampant when it comes to the Skull and Bones, suggesting that powerful elites from within influence politics and finance. Now, membership, as one could expect, is very limited to a select few senior students at Yale who are chosen through mysterious ways, okay? You need to work on a lot more than just your GPA. I don't even know how to get in or what the criteria is, but it's not just anybody. These initiates are referred to as bonesmen. The society's rituals are kept to the utmost secrecy, even after their time in the society. After you leave, you can't go around telling everybody about the Skull and Bones Society and all the stuff you got up to, and clearly no one's doing that because it was not easy to find information for this. Some suggest the society acts as a breeding ground for future leaders, wielding significant power in business, politics, and finance, while others believe they're part of a larger cabal of conspiracies with hidden agendas tied to the Masons and the Illuminati. Now, there is precious little information regarding the Skull and Bones out there. We know it exists. That much is true. And many powerful people have claimed or have been claimed to be the members. But as far as actual cold hard facts about what happens behind closed doors, we don't know a lot. I am but a humble YouTuber. I never went to Yale. If anyone wants to extend me an invite, I think the Top 5 Scary DMs are open. But for now, we know precious little about the infamous secret society. Now, we may not know a lot about the Skull and Bones, but we have lots of other secrets for you to unveil, from everything from Bigfoots, ghosts, conspiracies, ghouls, goblins, pretty much anything scary or freaky under the sun or above it, we've got a video or two on. So hit subscribe to Top 5 Scary. Please ring that little bitty bell so you don't miss a video. But do that at the end of this video so I can tell you about all these other secret societies, okay? Number 4, Freemasonry. Our next entry is the Freemasons, a group I am sure you've probably heard of before. The Freemasons are a fraternal organization that traces its origins back to the medieval guild of stonemasons. Makes sense? Now, while its early history is rooted in the craft of stonemasonry, or blue-collar work, the modern-day Freemasons have evolved into a global fraternity that promotes brotherhood, personal development, philanthropy, and if you believe the stories, might secretly be running the world from behind the shadows. Freemasonry has long been associated with conspiracies, definitely because of its secretive nature, its symbols, and its historical prominence. The group actually does have slight ties to the founding of the Illuminati, with the group's order serving as inspiration for Adam Weishaupt's group, which we will talk about more about at the end of the video. Freemasons are sometimes spoken of like a synonym for the Illuminati, like they're interchangeable groups, with the belief that Freemasons are involved in clandestine activity. To the theorists, Freemasons control governments, banks, using their influence, and pointing out that throughout history, many notable world leaders and key figures have been Freemasons or have had familial ties to Freemasonry. There are some wilder conspiracy theories out there too that suggest that Freemasonry is tied to supernatural or occult practices, claiming that Freemasons engage in esoteric rituals and possess hidden knowledge, ancient mysteries, secret teachings. These beliefs make Freemasonry out to be a real secret kind of cult organization. Now, Freemasonry is real. Nobody's doubting that. Nobody's disproving that. The chances are actually pretty good that there's probably a Freemason lodge very close to where you live. The Freemasons boast brotherhood, fraternity, philanthropy, personal development, and they've got all these lovely things on their website, and I'm more than inclined to agree it really is just a place to hang out and rub elbows with other people, or is that all just a very convenient cover story to cover over the truth?
Number 3. Order of Nine Angels. The Order of Nine Angels, or the ONA, is one of the most mysterious and highly controversial groups in the world of modern Satanism and the occult. The ONA was founded in the UK in the 1960s, promoting extreme and often dangerous forms of Satanism. Its core beliefs and practices are complex and unconventional, which has led to bouts of intense debate and controversy from Satanists and non-practicing communities alike. The heart of their philosophy is the concept of the sinister tradition, which is a radical, committed path that encourages members to challenge societal norms and embrace chaos and darkness. They view Satan as a symbol of rebellion against the established order, advocating for personal transformation through dark and sometimes harmful experiences. One of the most notorious aspects of the ONA is its advocacy for culling, a term they use to describe acts of harm and even Homo sapien sacrifice. Some of the ONS's writings are extremely extremely dark and grossly disturbing, further demonstrating their deeply antisocial and extremist perspective. While they remain a highly secretive, tight-knit, and controversial group, their writings and philosophy have managed to spread widely and even found their way into other areas of the occult, impacting various forms of alternative spirituality. The Order of the Nine Angels remains a fringe and extremist organization to this day. Their beliefs and practices are widely criticized and condemned for their proud and loud promotion of harm and extremism. As with any belief system, it's important to approach their beliefs with caution and to be aware of the potential harm and danger it can pose, especially if it's taken to the extreme. Number 2. Sachiko Ito. The bizarre and disturbing saga of Sachiko Ito, the woman who would come to be known as the Drumstick Killer, began in 1990. It all started when her husband suffered a back injury, which not only incapacitated him, but also led him down a very dark path of drinking and gambling, which ended up pushing the couple into very deep debt, which eventually forced them to sell their home and move to a different town. In their new town, they became involved with a religious group, which was deeply involved in spiritual faith healing. But their involvement didn't last long because they used the organization's name without permission and were expelled. This led to Ito's husband experiencing a mental breakdown and disappearing without a trace in 1992. With her husband gone, the descent into her heinous actions began. She moved approximately 100 miles north of Tokyo and started performing spiritual healings. Ito proclaimed that she was a healer and a psychic, gradually making increasingly grandiose claims. She eventually declared herself a god who possessed the power to drive demons out of people. These statements quickly attracted a large following of devotees who flocked to her for services. Ito's cult grew quickly, with over a dozen believers and their family members living in her home and participating in rituals. Her rituals, involving drumstick beatings meant to end the dirty body and purify the soul, quickly escalated in aggression. She accused some of her followers of being possessed by a bad fox and had them beaten until they were hardly alive. In June of 1995, less than 3 years after Ito moved, one of Ito's followers was hospitalized with severe injuries from a ritual. This follower also reported that her husband had abruptly disappeared after visiting Ito's house. This raised suspicions and led the police to search the premises, where they uncovered a truly horrific scene. 6 decomposing bodies, 2 men and 4 women, were discovered, some mummified and wrapped in futons. All of their lives were ended due to the harm inflicted during Ito's rituals. Ito, her daughter, and a man named Yutaka Nemoto and another follower were arrested and charged with the deaths. Ito's survivor, who had reported the cult, was also arrested. Ito initially claimed that the deaths were unintentional and were simply a part of a religious exorcism. The trial resulted in Ito receiving a life-ending sentence, while her accomplices received prison sentences ranging from 18 years to life. On September 27, 2012, at the age of 65, Ito was hanged after several unsuccessful appeals, hopefully ending the belief system that she created, but no one's quite sure. Number 1. Temple of the Black Light. The Temple of the Black Light, which can also be referred to as the Misanthropic Luciferian Order, MLO, which is what I will be calling it because it's the shortest name. The MLO is a group associated with left-hand path spirituality and philosophy. MLO was founded in Sweden in the early 1990s, and it has gained popularity in cult theorists for its unique approach to Satanism and the left-hand path. The central notion of the MLO is the self-created worship that they call Chaos Gnostic Satanism. What sets them apart from many other satanic groups, MLO's beliefs are rooted in a drastic form of nihilism and a deep desire to embrace chaos, darkness, and spiritual rebellion. Honestly, real. They believe in an intangible force called chaos, which they see as a destructive, creative, and transformative entity that has great power and aims to oppose the order and constraints of the universe. MLO's members revere Lucifer as a symbol of enlightenment, liberation, and defiance against traditional religious and societal norms. However, their interpretation of Lucifer is much different from popular depictions of him. To them, Lucifer represents a dark and chaotic force that opposes established religion and the moral codes of society. The MLO is known for its extreme and often controversial writings, which explore the esoteric beliefs of the religion in depth. Their texts often feature highly complex and cryptic symbolism, which is intended to be understood by those who are deeply committed to the group's philosophy and not for those outside. I mean, that's a good way to reject skeptics. Like, if skeptics were like, dude, this text doesn't make any sense, the members could just say, yeah, well, duh, you wouldn't get it. You can't sit with us. The Temple of the Black Light is considered a highly controversial group within the broader satanic community as well. They are criticized for their extremist and nihilistic views, as their beliefs are not an accurate representation of traditional satanic traditions and beliefs, which normally encompass a wide spectrum of beliefs and practices. The Temple of the Black Light actually remains a small and secretive group that's still active to this day.
In 5th place, we have NXIVM. I thought I'd kick off today with the most recent cult on our list. NXIVM was started in 1998, making it younger than I am. Founder Keith Rainier originally promoted NXIVM as a self-help organization with workshops and classes on empowerment. NXIVM amassed more than 18,000 followers across North America until 2017, when members came forward to expose the not-so-good practices of a secret society within the group. Women were recruited under the false pretense that they were joining a sisterhood of sorts, but it ended up being a sex cult. So a pyramid scheme existed within the group, with Keith, who members called Vanguard, at the top, followed by Masters, who recruited other women to the secretive group, and at the bottom were the newest recruits, who were referred to as slaves. A former member explained that in order to be admitted to the secret club, she had to give her master naked photos and other compromising documents that would be used as blackmail if she ever told anyone about the group's existence. She was also told that another part of the initiation process was getting a small tattoo, but when the day of the marking arrived, instead of a tattoo, the new members were told to undress, and their master branded them with a design that included Keith's initials right above their pelvic area. Each woman was instructed to say, and I quote, "Master, please brand me, it would be an honor." Ugh, icky. Just so icky. In 2020, Keith was tried in court, where more than a dozen women came forward with statements regarding his psychological and sexual misdoings. He was convicted of many crimes, including sex vroom vroom, racketeering, and underage bad videos. Keith was sentenced to life in prison, but in a court filing, his lawyers wrote that he is not sorry for his conduct or his choices. Well, that just kind of knocks the wind out of me. Anyone else? In 4th place, we have the Children of God. Initially called Teens for Christ, Children of God, or COG, was founded in 1968 by rogue preacher David Berg in Huntington Beach, California. Attracting young runaways and hippies, David preached a kind of worship that combined the ways of Jesus Christ with the free love movement of the 1960s. Group living, zealous converting, and isolated communes were all pillars of the Children of God Church. Members, who got to be around 15,000 people across the world at its peak, didn't work or go to school. The COG didn't believe in the nuclear family, so younglings were grouped together and lived separately from their parents. In the late 1970s, COG became notorious for the sexual practices that one of the founders' own daughters later described as religious sexual coercion. David coined the term flirty fishing, which was a sexual practice in which women would allegedly have sex with men to bring them into the cult. If that wasn't scummy enough, he also promoted and encouraged the sexualization of younglings within the COG community. As David manipulated the COG family with his sadistic practices, members started leaving the community, including the families of actors Joaquin Phoenix and Rose McGowan, who both grew up in the communes. Former COG members began coming forward in the early 1990s, describing an environment that permitted and encouraged the physical and sexual taking advantage of younglings. Ricky DuPuy appeared on a talk show in 1993 and revealed that he'd been ordered by the group to forcibly fornicate with someone barely in the double digits of age. Ricky later took his own life, sadly like many other members of the group, including the founder's son, Ricky Rodriguez, who was sexually taken advantage of throughout his life by his father and the group. Although David died in 1994 while under FBI investigation, the cult continues to exist and now goes by the name Family International, although the group claims that the horrific practices are a thing of the past. Sure. Okay. I trust that as much as I trust the construction in Toronto to meet a deadline. No.
Number 3, the Knights Templar. Now perhaps you know this next group best as the villains of the Assassin's Creed franchise, or depending on your personal philosophies, the unspoken hero of the Assassin's Creed franchise, but that's another story. The Knights Templar were a medieval Christian military order formed in the 12th century to protect the pilgrims that were traveling to Jerusalem during the Crusades. Very quickly, the Templars grew in power, wealth, and influence, and this band of swordsmen quickly rose to establish a network all across Europe. Now, there have been a ton of conspiracies revolving around the Knights Templars over the years. I'm sure partly because the Knights Templars is a very cool sounding name. They also had a sudden and dramatic downfall. Didn't have anything to do with any order of hay-jumping assassins, but they did close their gates pretty quickly. In 1307, King Philip IV of France initiated a campaign against the Templars, accusing them of many heinous crimes, heresies, idolatry, corruption, secret ceremonies. Now, the order was officially disbanded after this, and many of its members were arrested, interrogated, and executed. And quick aside, the Templars really did do a lot of these things, and the Templars did unspeakable things during the Crusades, and it's not that far to say the Templars were a very, very, very malignant presence. One prominent conspiracy theory suggests that the Templars possessed hidden knowledges or relics, including the Holy Grail or Ark of the Covenant, believing these sacred artifacts bestowed them incredible power and influence. Some people also theorize that the Templars knew they were going to be disbanded, and they concealed these treasures to pass them on to other secret societies. This shows up very, very prominently in Assassin's Creed, where the Templar Order sort of splinters off into all these different little groups, but holds on to these pieces of Eden, these powerful relics that give them all these powers. But I gotta stop talking about Assassin's Creed. Another theory links the Templars to Freemasonry, suggesting that the Order's traditions, symbolism, and rituals were passed down and sort of given to the Freemasons, which is why the Freemasons, the Knights Templar, and the Illuminati are so connected in conspiracy circles. Some conspiracists propose that the Templars survived their dissolution and the disbandment was just a cover story, and they're still operating their clinking swords together, having secret meetings. They went underground, established new organizations, and now they're rebranding themselves. Some claiming that they played a role in shaping historical events such as the American Revolution or founding these modern banking systems, and eventually sort of snaked their way into every other general controlling the world conspiracy theory. Yeah, big ol' pause. Number 2, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Wow. Coming up next is going to be the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a mystical 19th century order emerging in England, and one of the best names for a secret society like ever. This sounds like the villains of a Final Fantasy game. The order was famous for its esoteric tradition and practice of magic. Yep, the order that sounds like it's a bunch of wizards did practice magic. The Golden Dawn sought to explore the spiritual and occult aspects of the world through their rituals and symbolism. Now, the order was founded by 3 key individuals. That's William Woodman, William Westcott, and Samuel Little McGregor Methers, who secretly resented the other 2 members for having alliterative W names, and he felt deeply left out. Over the years, the Golden Dawn would attract plenty of notable figures, including notorious occultist Aleister Crowley, who did also inspire one of the best Black Sabbath songs. Internally, the Golden Dawn experienced a manner of conflict. Disagreement over leaderships, initiation, and the true nature of the Order's teachings and mission were all things that caused strife. Some people later on have suggested these internal conflicts were planned to maintain control and secrecy over the organization. Imagine that. Your organization is so secret, you need to get rid of your own members. Keep them out of the loop. They know too much. Conspiracists believe that the Order's supernatural ties mean they are involved with some paranormal entities. Maybe we're getting a little bit out there. Believing that they were able to manipulate and control individuals and situations. They could control minds and influence. Summon demons. Of course, it could also just be a giant load of hullabaloo, and the Golden Dawn could have been nothing more than a bunch of old men role-playing wizards like a Dungeons and Dragons club. We'll probably never know the truth, though. At number 1, we got the Illuminati proper. They had to be the number 1 secret society, right? Who else could it have been? Is there a more famous secret society? There's probably more secret societies, but I wouldn't know about them. You certainly know the Illuminati as this shadowy organization of puppet masters pulling the strings and influencing the world behind their scenes, using Jay-Z and Beyonce to further their goals somehow. But what do you know of the group's origins? To separate the fact through the fiction, let me take you on a journey after a few minutes of Google searching. The infamously secretive order's origins can actually be traced back kind of easy to a university professor named Adam Weishaupt in 1776. He taught natural law at a university in Bavaria and was orphaned at an early age. He was then raised by his erudite uncle, who fostered a love of knowledge in the boy. Adam loved knowledge and thought that consuming knowledge was life's greatest pursuit. He was very frustrated by countries and states that were dominated by religion, like his Catholic homeland of Bavaria. He was very anti-Catholic Church, a position that was not particularly looked upon with favor at the time. Now, Adam had envisioned a tight group of people who could challenge the church's stranglehold on information, and he saw a formal group in mind focused on illumination rather than suppression. There's definitely some irony in a group that's so famous now for secrecy and mystery that its original intention was to illuminate people. Initially, Weishaupt sought out the Order of Freemasons, believing that the Freemasons were exactly the men he was looking for, but he was denied entry. Frustrated, Adam chose to seek out his own people people, and dubbed his new group the Order of the Illuminati, but based his organization very strongly on the Freemasons. He borrowed their hierarchy, code names, clandestine dealings, a lot of their symbolism, and this is largely why people sort of mistake the two groups and correlate them together, lump them in with the same conspiracies. Adam did also pluck several Freemasons from lodges to come join, so undoubtedly there was crossover between both groups, but they're different things. Since then, pretty much every single conspiracy theory imaginable has been connected to the Illuminati. Governments, banks, entertainment, bada 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 bada. It's all orchestrated by the Illuminati, and we simply play out their script. Symbols such as the Eye of Providence are seen as proof. It's on the dollar bill, or there's symbology used in music videos and entertainment. That's proof of the group's control. Anytime you see Jay-Z doing one of these, that's proof that he's an Illuminati agent. So there was a real Illuminati, definitely, and there were a bunch of Bavarian nerds, but is there still an Illuminati pulling all the strings?